On a quiet morning in southern Italy, 20,000 people woke up and went about their normal lives. They had no idea they had less than 24 hours to live. This is the story of Pompeii, a wealthy Roman city that vanished so completely the world forgot it ever existed for almost 1,700 years. And here's the part most documentaries don't tell you. Historians aren't even sure what season it happened in. For 500 years, everyone believed it was August. New evidence says they were wrong. Pompeii sat at the base of a green, vine-covered mountain called Vesuvius. The locals didn't even know it was a volcano. To them, it was just a mountain, fertile, peaceful, perfect for growing grapes and olives. The city itself was thriving. Around 11,000 people called it home. Merchants, fishermen, wealthy families with frescoed villas, and workers producing garum, a fermented fish sauce that Romans put on almost everything. 17 years before the end, a massive earthquake had already shaken Pompeii to its foundations. Buildings cracked. Some were never fully repaired. But life went on, because nobody connected the earthquake to the mountain looking down on them. That should have been the warning. Vesuvius wasn't sleeping. It was waking up. For years, historians dated the disaster to August 24th, 79 AD. That date came from a letter written by a witness named Pliny the Younger. But the letter survived only in copies made centuries later, and the exact date may have been altered by scribes over time. Then, archaeologists started finding strange things. Pomegranates, walnuts, wine jars sealed after the autumn harvest, people buried in heavy winter clothing. None of that makes sense in August. In 2018, diggers found a piece of charcoal writing on a wall mentioning a date in October, written, it seemed, just days before the city died. By 2022, a team of scientists had re-examined the evidence and proposed a new window. Late October, not August. The date the whole world learned in school may simply be wrong. We don't know for certain which season it was. What we do know, with chilling precision, is what happened once it started. Because Pompeii didn't just burn. It was frozen, second by second, in the exact moment of its death. At just after midday, without warning beyond a faint rumble beneath their feet, Mount Vesuvius tore itself open, and the sky above Pompeii turned black. A column of ash, gas, and pumice shot nearly 20 miles into the sky, taller than any mountain on Earth. Pliny the Younger, watching from across the bay, described it as shaped like an umbrella pine, a trunk of smoke that split into branches at the top, spreading wider and wider across the sky. For the next several hours, the sky rained pumice. Not ash falling gently. Stones, some as big as a fist, hammering down on rooftops at terrifying speed. Roofs began to collapse under the weight. People who had sheltered indoors thinking they were safe were suddenly not safe at all. Outside, the streets filled with pumice stone, ankle deep, then knee deep, then waist deep. Walking became a struggle. Breathing became worse. The air itself was thick with ash and sulfur. Many residents made a decision in those first hours that would save their lives. They left. They grabbed what they could carry and walked away from the city, away from the mountain, toward the coast or inland. Roughly 2 miles away across the bay, a Roman fleet commander named Pliny the Elder saw the column rising and did something almost no one else did. He sailed toward it. He wasn't reckless. He was a naturalist, fascinated by the phenomenon, and he also wanted to rescue people trapped along the coast. He would not survive the attempt, overcome, accounts say, by the toxic fumes. Back in Pompeii, those who stayed faced a city transforming into something unrecognizable.
The pumice fall continued for hours, methodical and relentless, like the world had decided to bury them slowly. Then, sometime after midnight, the eruption entered its most violent phase. The column of ash, now miles high, became too heavy to sustain itself. It collapsed back down onto the volcano in a churning, glowing avalanche of superheated gas and ash, racing outward faster than anyone could run. This is called a pyroclastic surge, and it is, without exaggeration, one of the deadliest forces in nature. Temperatures inside it reached roughly 250 degrees Celsius, nearly 500 degrees Fahrenheit. For anyone still in Pompeii when it arrived, death was nearly instantaneous. Not from burning alive in the way we might imagine, but from the sheer thermal shock, faster than the body could even register pain. This single detail is why Pompeii became one of the most haunting archaeological sites on Earth. The people weren't burned to nothing. They were preserved, captured in the exact positions of their final seconds. A mother curled around her children, a dog still chained in a doorway, a man covering his face with his cloak, as if that could possibly help. The eruption is estimated to have continued in waves for roughly a day or two before it finally subsided, though the exact duration is still debated among researchers, since the ancient accounts and the volcanic deposits don't perfectly agree. When it was finally over, Pompeii no longer existed as a city. It existed as a shape in the landscape, a mound of ash and stone, roughly 4 to 6 meters deep, where a thriving community used to be.
For nearly 17 centuries, Pompeii simply disappeared from human memory. Generations were born, lived, and died on top of it, without knowing a city was buried beneath their feet. The first hint came by accident, in 1599, when workers digging a water channel struck ancient walls and painted frescoes. They didn't understand what they'd found, and the discovery was quietly forgotten again. It wasn't until 1748 that real excavation began, ordered by the King of Naples. Workers expected treasure. What they found instead would change the study of history forever. As diggers cleared the ash, they kept finding strange hollow spaces in the hardened volcanic material. Empty pockets, shaped almost like nothing they recognized. In the 1860s, an archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli had a breakthrough realization. Those hollow spaces weren't empty. They were the exact molds left behind by human bodies that had decomposed inside the hardened ash. Fiorelli's solution was as simple as it was haunting. Pour plaster directly into the voids. When it hardened and the surrounding ash was carefully removed, the plaster had taken the precise shape of a person's final moment. Suddenly, Pompeii wasn't just ruins. It was people, caught mid-motion, mid-breath, mid-life. Frozen at the exact second everything ended. Today, archaeologists estimate that around 2/3 of the ancient city has been excavated. The rest remains buried, deliberately, preserved for future generations and future technology. And new discoveries are still happening. In 2021, archaeologists uncovered a remarkably intact ceremonial chariot near one of Pompeii's grand villas. As recently as 2023 and 2024, teams have found new frescoes and even a small private bathhouse, still showing traces of its original decoration. We still don't know exactly how many people died that day. Estimates range from roughly 13,000 to 16,000 across the wider region, though no one can say for certain. We still argue over what month it happened in. We still don't know everything buried beneath that final third of the city. What we do know is this: Vesuvius is not extinct. It's the only active volcano on mainland Europe, and roughly 700,000 people
now live in what experts call its danger zone. Pompeii didn't just lose a city to a volcano. It gave the world an unintended gift, a frozen window into ordinary Roman life, preserved by the very disaster that ended it. The question historians keep returning to isn't just what happened in 79 AD. It's whether, somewhere down that same coastline, history is quietly preparing to repeat itself.